So you lost your father and you lost your brother.
My brother.
And your brother passed on life support.
Yes.
Know that he's here and that he's with you. All of a sudden, he kept showing me the visions or the flashes of like the MRI and going back into his head. And he showed me like his brain swelled up when I'm connecting with him.
Anoxic brain injury.
It was a brain injury,
Anoxic, yeah. Lack of oxygen.
loss of oxygen. So know that that's what he's bringing up. Because he says, my family was so, and especially you, because you were there with your brother. Do you understand that? Did you try to go and be there for him or be there with him?
I was in Greece and couldn't get home.
Oh, you were in Greece and couldn't be home. Well, he keeps telling me, they kept me for 3 days. They kept me for 3 days. I was on life support for 3 days. He keeps telling that to me.
He's pissed about it. I'm sure. I was trying to get home.
So they kept him on oxygen or on life support so you could come home to have a final say with him. But his soul already took off.
The day I landed at JFK.
So the day you landed at JFK,
Yep.
it took off. Your brother knows that you cut your trip short.
Yeah.
Because he's telling me that. And he literally showed me, like you trying to get through traffic and trying to get to see him and trying to see him one last time.
I lost a friend at JFK airport, meaning I didn't make a friend because I'd gotten a text from my daughter. And I said, lady, get the out of my way. I have a phone call to make to let him go. It was horrible going through customs. It was terrible. And you're right, I wasn't in the mood. Get the out of my way. And she did. It's probably wise.
But you were fighting to be there for your brother. And he said to me, I did not want this. He says, I didn't want the tubes, I didn't want the life support, I didn't want any of this. He says, I just wanted to go.
He didn't.
Did he fall backwards? Because I keep feeling like the back of my head.
His head in the hallway, knocking on a door to call 911.
I keep feeling right here when I'm connecting with him. And he said to me, that's where it all was.
Yep.
He said to me, I want to let you know about how much that I loved you and cared about you. He says, and more importantly, if there's one thing I didn't want you to cut your trip short, I didn't want you to have to do this. He says, I know they kept me for you to see me, but I would not have wanted you to see me like this. And he's acknowledging that.
Yep.
He tells me you wrote him a letter after he died. He's got that letter in heaven.
I wrote it last week. It was the anniversary of his death. And
So-
I know he's with me. I just didn't get to say goodbye.
So last week you wrote him that letter?
Yeah.
It's his way of letting you know that when you wrote him that letter, he saw that. And more importantly, he says, I love you too. He says, know that I'm right there and with you. He says, and I want you to know that it's not about you being there for me when I passed. He says, you were the person that I could go to for anything. He says, you weren't just my sister. You took care of me like you were my mother. He says, when I had an issue, when I had a problem, I went to you. Even though you used to disagree with your brother. Like he shows me the two of you used to fight like cats and dogs. And you used to fight and used to go head to head and argue and get upset with one another and fight with one another.
Yes.
He says, but we loved each other unconditionally. Who's Chris?
My son.
He's watching.
No, not my son. Chris?
Chris. Tell me Chris.
I have a half-brother, Chris, but if he's passed, I haven't seen him in
No,
years.
this is here in the physical.
Christos is my son. We
Hello,
call him
pay
Chris.
attention. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking somebody, well, I have people on the other side, too.
No,
My son.
he's watching over your son here in the physical. So no, he's keeping an eye on him. Because he wants you to know that you're an amazing mother. Because he's bringing that up. And he just said to me, my sister's a very private person. He says, she doesn't like you putting all this information out to all these people.
Oh, I'm not private. I'm...
Oh, bullshit. He tells me you are.
Sort of.
I don't want to, so, because he
I
talks
don't
about,
receive compliments well.
okay. So because he said to me, you're always used to being in the background, helping out everybody else, being there for everybody else.
Yes.
To have someone like me talk to you about this thing, it's not who you are.
Right.
Because you're always used to being on this side.
Yes.
Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
He said to me, though, when I'm connecting, that he's watching over your son here in the physical world. He tells me that your son is very, very sensitive.
Yes.
And more importantly, that there was issues with his dad here in the physical when I'm connecting.
Say again?
There was issues with his father here in the physical when I'm connecting.
My brother's father or my son's?
Your son's father.
Yes.
That's what he's bringing up.
Okay.
So when I'm talking to you about your son, I'm talking in today's world, not the other
Thank
side.
you. Okay. Yep.
Because he just said to me, he says, that you've been trying to play both mom and dad roles for him here in this world.
My son, my husband has terminal cancer. So yeah.
And that's what he's talking about.
Okay.
So he said to me that not only are you taking care of your husband, but you're trying to be both mom and dad at the same time. And he said, that's the reason why he's watching over your son. He says, your son is going to be okay. Your brother is saying, you helped me all these years, let me help you. I'm here. I'm watching over you. I'm watching over your son and everything that's going on and that's happening. He says, your son is going to be okay. He's a compassionate person. He's a strong person. And he's just like you.
Yes, he is.
He says, so you're so afraid of your son being hurt that you're trying to guard him and protect him, when at the end of the day, he's going to be hurt. Losing a loved one is the saddest thing and the hardest thing that you can ever go through. And you're trying to protect your son from that. Mm-hmm. But he says, it's okay. He can cry. You can cry. He says, enjoy your life. He says, as best you can with him while he's still here. Because if I'm coming through and I'm here, of all people, he said, I can let you know that heaven is real. He says, and that even if we spend just a few moments, he says, even if we live to be 120 here in the physical, when you go to the other side, compared to the time that we spend on the other side, we spent hundreds and hundreds of years there. Here on earth just seems like minutes, seconds, and hours. So he says, it's okay. Know that we will be reunited again. He says, I'm watching over you. I'm there for your husband. He says, and I'm watching over your son as well. He says, but you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's been an issue.
He tells me you haven't been sleeping. You've been up 24/7, and you're running on no sleep.
Yep.
So he says, it's okay. You need to rest to be able to take care of everyone and to be there for everybody. He says, I love you, and I am safe and at peace. Give them a round of applause.